What's going on, guys? Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well. We're back. Football is back. The Premier League is back. Manchester United is back. And we are back with another match preview. And it's a slippery away fixture for Manchester United. It's Sheffield United versus Manchester United. And I'm joined by the perfect person to assist me in the Sheffield United knowledge. Joined by Ollie from Sheffield United Way. How's it going, mate?
Yes, not too bad, thank you. I'm sure many of your viewers will be aware of some of the weather issues that have plagued Manchester today. I was in Manchester this afternoon and it took me 3.5 hours to get myself back home to Sheffield. So I'm my hair's still a bit wet, but other than that, we are all good to go and looking forward to tomorrow. Just glad that proper football's back. That's the main thing.
I know. Tell me about it. International break. I think, is that done now to the end of, till Christmas, I think? Hopefully, fingers crossed. But let's get straight. Oh, is there one more?
I know.
I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan. Let's get straight into this, though. This is really interesting. Obviously, from a Sheffield United point of view, it's not going too great so far this season. I don't need to remind you, but bottom of the league, 1 point, no wins, tough start to the season. Contrastingly, though, you have Manchester United also, from our standards, certainly not a great start to the season either. 8 games, 4 wins, 4 defeats, very much a mixed bag. We left off with a late winner against Brentford last time out, but still not convincing at all. So how are you feeling ahead of this one tomorrow?
How am I feeling? Well, I think the main thing, and obviously you'll know this, all your fans will know this, but it is an event when you play against Manchester United. It's one of those clubs that, particularly as a team who have had, 3 years in the Premier League, I think, in the last 20. So it is nice. And it's one of those games that you can always get up for, like, regardless of how we're doing, whether we've started well, started badly. I think this is going to be one of them games that just brings a massive atmosphere and that we're all really, really excited for. But yeah, you're not wrong. I think we were ready for the international break. You know, I don't like watching international football. I don't like not being able to go to Bramall Lane. But the last time I were at Bramall Lane, it did kick a bit of the stuffing out of me. We played Newcastle and we don't need to go into it. But yeah, so maybe the break was welcome. I think we're going to come back and we can't be as bad as we were before the break. I do think this is the sign that we need to go for it. And I am expecting us to be a bit better.
I say what, from my point of view, it's a strange one. United's thus far this season, look, if it was at home, I'd say, look, no problem. Away from home, our record, it's not great. It's like the 4th worst in the league. Mm-hmm. Historically, since Eric Ten Hag's come in, we've done okay against sort of lower table sides away from home. Our last away game was against Burnley, won that 1-0. Just about. So you and it is kind of crazy, isn't it? I get the thing from opposition fans when you go, oh, look at the players you got. Like, why are you saying exactly? But still, you never know what you're going to get from Man United, certainly, particularly this season, particularly away from home. Yeah. When it comes to Sheffield United, though, what was the expectation for you guys going into this season? Obviously, you were promoted last season, but obviously the financial issues, they're quite well documented. Lost a few players over the summer. Yep. I saw an interview on your channel with your owner as well. Big up for that. Talking about still looking for investment. So is this really surprising what you've seen thus far this season, or was this kind of to be expected a bit?
I think it's to be expected a bit, if we're being honest. And I think you can split our season quite nicely as well to before Newcastle and after Newcastle, which I think does make a big difference to the way that we look at it. Because the first 5 games, I thought we were unlucky. I thought we'd actually started the season pretty well. We got done in the 89th minute against Forest. We got done in the 88th minute against City. We got done in the 99th minute against Tottenham. Like, we could very easily have been sat there thinking, oh, we've got 4 or 5 points. That's a really positive start. But when you've not won those games and all of those last-minute goals have gone against you, you then let 8 in at home, and that turns the season, really. And I think post-Newcastle, there's been a lack of fight, and that's what's really upset fans, is that it's felt as though what we've done is we've turned up to games just trying to keep the score down. Like, we just don't want to be embarrassed again, so we'll take losing 2-0 and put his hands up and have his belly scratched. And so I think what we're looking for now is something a little bit different, because we expected relegation, especially losing Iliman Ndiaye, who was our best player last year. He's who I would say was the best player in the Championship last year. He was a truly outstanding talent. Sander Berge moved on 3 days before the season started. So we were always on a hide into nothing, and it was always going to be a really difficult season. I just think we expected to be more competitive than we've been in recent
Mm.
games. And that's where the pain comes a little bit. That's what's a little bit demoralizing. But I think with a break, with time to sort of reflect on it, and also with time to just not lose for a couple of weeks, hopefully that does make a difference mentally. And we are ready to be a competitive team again, especially at Bramall Lane, because we do expect to be able to give teams a game there.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting actually when you say about those sort of finer margins because it's been somewhat
Yeah.
similar with United thus far this season too. You look at some of the games that haven't gone our way. I mean, if that Garnacho one's offside against Arsenal, we win that
Yeah.
game. Against Spurs, we were unlucky not to get a penalty. Bruno Fernandes in the first half missed a header from 6 yards out as well. Against Brighton, we pulled it back to 1-1, but the ball had gone out of play. You know, those little things, as you mentioned,
Those
fans point to, but ultimately, when you look at the table, it doesn't reflect
doesn't
upon
change.
anything. You still, you know, exactly. You still got your
It
points,
means
and the
nothing at
pressure's
all.
still on. Exactly, exactly. When it comes though to the sort of the financial side of things at Sheffield United, obviously there's a bit of comparison there, obviously with United at the moment as well. Manchester United going through their whole acquisition takeover. It's not really a
Yeah.
takeover, all that kind of stuff. What's the latest when it comes to that from Sheffield United? Is there any optimism or hope that there's going to be some cash put in, or is it kind of a bit like United for a long time, lots of delays and no real news?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you a tiny little violin for that one. I think in comparison of some
I
of the
know.
issues, but I do completely get where you're coming from, and I think for us at the moment, there's not really been a spark. You know, we were first rumored to be being bought. I think it must be two seasons ago now, and that was Henry Morris. For anybody who knows his story, he's currently in prison in America, I believe, as I understand it. And so you know that tells you what was going on with that transfer. We then had somebody who'd had a bid accepted probably 12 months ago, a guy called Dozy and Bose. And through time, it became clear that he potentially didn't have the funds to complete.
Yeah, I remember
And
reading
then
about that. Yeah.
news went really quiet. He did a big interview with Rio Ferdinand talking about how he
Mm.
wanted to buy United. And so it felt legit. Obviously, it got those sort of hallmarks of something you think, yeah, this is going to be good for us. But because it never came to fruition and it's just been really quiet since the summer, when we had the owner on our channel, Prince Abdullah, it was great to speak to him. He's always really open. He does try to do these kind of chats with fans to let us know what's happening. But he did seem optimistic that there would be a deal completed over the summer. We've heard nothing at all since then. So it does seem as though it's gone a bit quiet, and that is concerning. But you know, for us, what's different and what is obviously a completely different stratosphere is I think the Premier League money will now keep us going. You know, where we were 12 months ago, we went into a transfer embargo, and so we were battling against that last January. We couldn't recruit. And it did start to affect us towards the end of the season. The main thing for us this year is that we've not gone crazy with our spending. We've not put loads and loads of money into the squad, which you can see on the pitch and on the league table. But it does mean that when we go down, I do not expect us to be anything like the position we were last year. And it will at least secure us for a few seasons to say, actually, let's just regroup in the championship, which might be what we need to do. But yeah, the sooner a new owner can come in, the better. But I'm not seeing anything on the horizon at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, like I agree with you. When like, it's a loose comparison. It's a loose comparison. You know, when we're
There's a
talking about
bit different.
yeah, the money we were talking involved, but still, certainly, it's a takeover situation. It's cash injection. What's your team news looking like? Because obviously, Manchester United this season, we've had an injury crisis, to put it lightly. I mean, at one point, I mean, we got in Sergio Reguilon because both our left
Yeah.
backs were injured. He got injured. We're still in a situation where probably 3 out of our best back four are out with injury as well. Other players out through injury too. But then I
Mm-hmm.
was seeing this week in your manager's press conference, he was saying that Sheffield United have got their own injury nightmare at the moment. Of course, Basham had the horror injury against Fulham. I
Real
believe he might
shocker.
still be in the hospital with that one at the moment.
Yeah, he is.
I saw that Egan and Davis, they've had operations too. So what's the team news looking like for Sheffield United ahead of the game at the weekend?
Honestly, I think left back's just a cursed position for everybody, it seems. If you've got United in your name and you're trying to sign a left back, just it's not good for your career to go
Yeah.
there. Because, yeah, we started the season, so Reece Norrington Davis would have been our first choice left wing back. He got injured last season. He's been out since. We're hearing some positive noises, but I think he's still a few months away. Max Lowe started this season as our first choice. He went down in the second game. He did his ankle tripping on a sprinkler on one of the pitches, which, you know, is just the kind of comedy injury you just do not hear about at all. So we're struggling a little bit at left back. It'll be one of the two lone players, Luke Thomas, who will be familiar to sort of fans of the Premier League over the last few years because he was at Leicester. And then we've got a player, Yaza Larouche, who was at Liverpool a few years ago, and he's raw, shall we say, in terms of his ability. As you've referenced, Basham, I think there were some positive noises from Heckingbottom, but I do think that injury might be the end of Basham's career,
Mm,
realistically. Obviously, he's 35. It's a significant leg break. He's had to have 2 surgeries already, and he's still in hospital recovering from that. John Egan's, I think it's his ACL, so he's going to be out for a significant period of time. Right wing back, George Baldock's out, so Jayden Bogle's been playing. And so defensively in particular, we are really struggling. I think there's a lot of conversation about whether we'll keep with the back 5 or whether
yeah.
we're going to move to a back 4, which is something we've not done successfully in about 20 years. So we'll see how that goes and whether or not we'll be able to get something together. But I think a lot of fans would like to see the back 4 now. I think it's really slim pickings. I think we've got 3 centre backs. So if we play a back 3, they're all playing, and
Yeah.
there's no other options. And the wing backs is what I worry about most because, as I've referenced there, on neither side have we got what we would call our first choice. And Rashford's pace really, really scares me.
Mm,
We've seen ourselves get exploited down both wings all season. We're conceding lots of goals from players getting in behind either fullback because the players that we've got now are more attacking minded. They're attack minded wing backs rather than the defence first fullbacks that we probably need at this stage of the season. And so that's where I'm worried, and that's where I think you'll damage us. In midfield, it's just Tom Davis came in the summer and just hasn't been able to play at all. It seems as though it's a really sort of another silly injury. He was out training absolutely fine. He stayed behind to have a sort of take some free kicks and just kick ball about a little bit. And manager said to him, "Come on, come back in." He said, "Right, I'll just knock this last one," and his knee's gone as he's
oh.
kicked the last one. And it's just one of them where you just feel like everything is piling up.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, it'll be around our first choice midfield. It will be Harmer, it will be Norwood, it will be Vinny Souza, and you might see James McAtee, obviously on loan from Manchester City. But to be honest, I don't think this is the game for him. And then up front, it'll be Ollie McBurney and Cameron Archer, and they should both
Mm,
be fit. So yeah, it's just defensive injuries are really, really starting to bite for us. But to be honest, none of the back 5 we've tried so far has worked. So maybe this will
yeah.
be the magic one.
Yeah, I mean, given that you obviously you've got some injuries, given obviously the financial issues and maybe the lack of transfer activity in the summer, is there an element of sympathy with Heckingbottom at the moment? Because obviously after that result against Newcastle, there was obviously all of the odds were saying, oh, he's going to be the first to go because it's always one of the sort of newly promoted
Yeah.
sides that get the manager sacked early on. But do you think there's an element of sympathy with him? Of it's a bit of a poison chalice at the moment as well?
Yes, definitely. I think the majority of fans are still fully behind Eckingbottom. They recognise the job that he did last summer. You know, we referenced the transfer embargo. He still got us promoted through all of that. He kept us going. He kept the players focused, and he deserves so much credit. And he's got a lot of credit in the bank. So I think most fans will be completely behind him, and they understand that effectively he had his legs chopped out from under him in the summer. Obviously, though, there is now a growing vocal group that feel as though time's right for a change. And, you know, when you see the performance against Newcastle and the result in particular, that does get rid of patience very quickly. I said from the start, if we'd lost 1-0 to Newcastle, there'd be no conversation at all about Heckingbottom's job. Everybody would just be saying, you know what, he's doing the best we can with the team we've got. But because of the 8-0, fans start to get a little bit twitchy. It's embarrassing. You take it on the chin, but it is embarrassing. And there's lots of talk amongst fans, I should be clear, but there was some reports in, I think it was the Daily Mail after the Newcastle game, that Chris Wilder was being lined up to come back to the club.
Yeah, I remember reading that. Yeah.
And so, I mean, for me, never go back. I always think that's the right thing. I think bringing somebody back like that, all he can do is ruin his own reputation. I don't think we're getting any better. I think Heckingbottom is the man for the job, and I think most fans do as well.
Yeah, it's interesting because I remember reading that at the time, and like I said, as an outsider looking in that doesn't know too much on the situation, on the face of it, you go, look, 8-0, no wins, he's a goner. But then when you do to
Yeah,
peek under the hood a little bit more, you go, oh, there's a bit more going on there actually as well, which is quite
yeah.
interesting. As an opposition fan, what have you made of Man United thus far this season? It seems like everyone's got an opinion.
Well, you're
um,
Manchester United. You've got to get
I
used to
know
that.
exactly. But what have you made for our start this season? As I mentioned, very much a mixed bag. Some signings not really working out this much at the moment. What have you made of it?
Yeah, it's a really interesting one, I think, Manchester United, because it's one of them where I don't know what I expected, but I did expect better. But yet this seems to be almost what's becoming a little bit more the norm, where it's a fairly positive season. It looks like things are turning, and it's followed by a poor start, and things need to get going again. Obviously, we saw it. I think it was Mourinho, you were second.
Yeah,
Solskjaer, you were second.
yeah,
Obviously, a really successful season with Ten Hag last year in terms of winning the cup. And so you think, oh, they've turned it around. And then it just seems to fall away a little bit again. So for me, the thing that I think I've noticed most when watching Man U is, and you'll have seen a lot more than me, it's I'm not sure I fully understand the plan. Now, I think obviously bringing in Mount, you're trying to turn into more of a pressing team. I've seen some of the stats are that you have seen a significant jump in your pressing numbers since last year, but I'm struggling to really follow it as you're playing. And sort of, particularly, I think it was the Brighton game that stuck out to me most, where it was that kind of, if there was a plan, it very quickly unraveled to sort of see
yeah.
the game be taken away from you. And yeah, I think it's one of those that's concerning. I do still like a lot of the attacking talent that you've got. Obviously, it needs to click. Rashford's not having the season he had last year, for example, when 12 months ago people were saying, oh, he's back and he's going to be one of the best in the world again. But he's still got all of that talent, got a great goal for England, and maybe that sort of confidence boost will be what really gets him going. I like Højlund up front. I think he's going to be a player. Obviously, it's a lot of money, but I do think he will be good. So there's certainly positive shoots. When you get the defence back, hopefully that will make a difference. I will give a shout out, and it probably make me unpopular on your channel. I love Harry Maguire. I think he's a fantastic player.
Well, I
And
was going to bring this up actually. It's funny you bring this up because when I was prepping for this, I thought I've got to bring up Harry Maguire. Obviously, Sheffield boy came through the
yeah,
academy, played over 100 games for Sheffield United. So it's actually a perfect time to bring up what a Sheffield United fan has made of his Manchester United tenure. Obviously, no longer the captain. Also,
yeah.
obviously, look, the conversation is always on him when he plays for England as well. Should he be playing for England? What have you made of that? And is there kind of a difference of opinion from maybe like a Man United fan and maybe
Yeah.
sort of a wider England fan as opposed to like a Sheffield United fan on his treatment?
I think there is, and I do think I've noticed. Obviously, you can't always judge everything off Twitter, but you do notice on Twitter a very marked difference in the attitudes of United fans compared to a lot of other fans. I think from our perspective, obviously performances haven't always been there, but it's not just him. I think he became a little bit of a scapegoat because you did overpay. I think everybody would recognise it. You paid too much money for him, and that you really probably shouldn't be paying that money for any centre back. Never mind one who you know what his limitations are. Like I knew
Yeah.
when he played in League One for us what Harry Maguire's limitations are, and what you've got to do is try and make sure his partner next to him and that the team around him can mean that you get the most. Because what he is a fantastic physical specimen. We all know that, but he's also got really good ball carrying abilities, and that's what always stood out for him with United. And I just think his confidence took a knock, and he's gone away from what he does so well. It was good to hear that I think he had quite a good game against Brentford in the last game. I thought
Yeah, I
he
did.
actually seemed to have done quite well. The narrative seemed to be that he'd been performing well. And yeah, I feel really sorry for him at the moment. I do think he needs a transfer. I think it would probably be best for all parties. But yeah, I think the general United fan is that he's, for me, I know he doesn't play loads. I understand why people complain, but I think he's the best, well, other than John Stones, is the best centre back England have got to be playing there. I think that he's comfortably good enough to be playing for a top Premier League team. He just needs somewhere fresh to get his confidence back.
Yeah, I think with Maguire, it's just a case of I've always looked at it as I agree with what people say where the line has been crossed with him so far. With some people, it's gone really extreme. People when it gets personal and the guys
Of
had
course.
people show up to his house and all this kind of stuff. It's nuts. It's insane stuff. I still think he should have left in the summer. Whether or not how
Sure.
close that West Ham deal was on the table, I don't know. But he fell down the pecking order. He's fallen down the pecking order so far. He might play tomorrow. But again, that's dependent on fitness. It won't be because he's the best centre back Manchester United have got. And I think Gareth Southgate's played a big part in this as well, because if he had said to him, look, your England future's in threat, then maybe he might have gone in the summer. It's not in threat. He's going to play at the Euros next year. We've seen that in the recent qualifiers. But I still do think as time goes on, if he still doesn't play games, He might end up going in January. There might be a loan offer on the table to go to West Ham or something like that. But I just
We'll
think
have him
it's just done.
if we
Yeah, yeah,
fancied
yeah,
it. If
yeah.
he
If
comes
you
to
want,
us,
if you
we'll
want,
have him. That'd be
you say,
absolutely fine.
you say never go back, but you change your mind for Harry Maguire. Look at that straight away. Yeah,
Immediately. I have no morals.
yeah. No, I mean, it's quite interesting as well. Just some Man United team news too. No Casemiro tomorrow. That was confirmed by Manchester United this week. Suffered an injury on international duty, so he's not returned from Brazil just yet. He's also suspended for the upcoming Champions League game, so he's out for a couple. Got some good names back though. Regulon is back, so we've got a left back. Get in. We're actually going to play. Got a left back to play. Sofian Amrabat. He's also available. There were some rumours that he had a back injury, so but he's fine. Kobe Mainu could be in line to play his first Premier League minutes this season. Of course, played in pre-season, played really, really well, and then got injured in just like a couple of minutes against Real Madrid in a pre-season friendly. So he could be involved possibly. As far as that, I mean, we still got the long-term injuries. Luke Shaw's out. We've got Lissandro Martinez out. Aaron Wan-Bissaka's out. As I mentioned, 3 of the back 4 not available. Obviously, Jadon Sancho not involved. He's probably going to go in January too. But apart from that, we're looking at getting back. I say apart from that, but we're getting back to what appears to be somewhat of a stronger team available. We just need to win, to be honest with you. I mean, as I mentioned, last season we lost 9 games. This season we've already lost 4. We have to go on a run. Our next Premier League game is the Manchester Derby at Old Trafford. So it's got to be a win. Obviously, we've got defensively injuries really hurting us, but Varane being back tomorrow is a really important one. This is quite interesting too. Given obviously United's start to the season, as you mentioned, a couple of the games you've had against Spurs, against City, I mean, it has been close. I mean, it was last minute
Yeah.
stuff, late drama. Do you look at a Man United and how they've started this season, and let's say of Andre Onana in goal as well, who's had a shaky start? Do you look at that and say to yourself, actually, there's a bit of room for optimism? Like we could get something out of this. Like they're right for the picking.
As much as you can think that when you're a team in 20th with 1 point, yes,
Mm,
I do. And I think there has been more optimism amongst United fans than there is about any game against Man U. I think we do look at it and say, look, this isn't the Man United of old. There is a chance there that we could turn up if we give the level of performance we gave at the start of the season. For example, the game against City, when we pushed them all the way. If we can turn up and do a defensive job like we did there, then there's a chance, we can frustrate you. I do think that depending on those defensive injuries, Cameron Archer can cause you problems. The last time that we played at Bramall Lane in front of fans, Lys Mousset was really able to put a lot of pressure on your back line with his pace, with his athleticism. He made a real difference in that game. And actually, I think if he'd not been subbed off, we might have held on to win it rather than having to do a dramatic last minute comeback. So I've got some positivity. I think Archer can do a similar job. That's what I'm wanting him to do up against potentially Johnny Evans if he'd play. That's the dream. But if he doesn't play, then we'll see what happens. So yeah, there's some cause for optimism, but there's also realism. And like I say, the main worry for me is the pace on the wings. Obviously, I don't know what the situation with the club and Anthony is at the moment, but if he's on one wing and
Probably going to
if
play. He'll
Rashford's on the
start.
other wing,
Yeah.
that is terrifying.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you say that actually, because when we look at that from our point of view, this season, Marcus Rashford. I mean, he's fortunate the international break came when it came because he was coming off progressively earlier as well, and there was a real discussion of Eric Ten Hag's got his favourites. Marcus Rashford had a great season last season, got a new contract, but this season he's been miles off it. When Garnacho's played, he's been better. We saw in the Champions League get a real great opportunity to put Bruno Fernandes in. Completely messed it up, and he's just been miles off it, and he's been overcomplicating stuff. As I mentioned, I think he came off on one game like 79th minute, then it was 65th, then it was 60th, so it was getting progressively worse for him. But look, international time came, he scored a goal, he will start tomorrow, there's no doubt he will start.
Yeah,
And as you mentioned, I think Anthony, he'll be available too. He'll start on the right hand side, but we're looking for way more from them, way more, and they just haven't done it. But if you're saying that the defense is vulnerable, maybe tomorrow's the time to do it. I don't know. Finally, before we get into predictions, with Andre Onana, are you hoping that Heckingbottom says to him, look, your strikers, your midfielders, just take some shots, because at the moment he's struggling.
Cameron Archer, look, we've not seen loads from him this season. Obviously, attacking wise, we've not been creating loads, but Cameron Archer can shoot. It's the one thing that we all know is that he can shoot. And so I hope the Heckingbottom is saying anywhere within that sort of 30 yards, just shoot. We know that you've got power. We know you can put it on target. We know that Onana is struggling. He's making mistakes. He's just not doing some of that natural goalkeeping stuff that, well, what my dad would have said 20 years ago is what a goalkeeper should do, rather than all this
Yeah.
fanning about with it at
Mm.
his feet. But no, yeah, I hope so. That's what the plan is. I think as well, we'll probably target set pieces and we'll
Yeah.
really try and get on top of you at set pieces. I think one thing the injuries has done is meant that Austin Trusty will definitely play tomorrow. He's definitely going to start. He was the second highest scoring defender in the championship last year. Fortunately, at right centre-back, we've got Anel Ahmedodzic, who was the first highest scoring central defender from the championship last season. So I think with those two on and with McBurney up front, we have got a lot of threat off set pieces, off corners, off free kicks. And I think we'll really want to start putting Onana under pressure in all of those scenarios just to try and force a wobble out of him. Because
Yeah.
realistically, if we're going to get something from this game, we're going to need a bit of luck. And that's the most likely avenue for us getting that luck, I think.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into it then. Predictions. What's your prediction for tomorrow then? Is it going to be a first win? You feeling it?
No, no, I don't. I think, sadly, I really want to be positive. But I said, so we do a weekly prediction show where we're predicting all of the Premier League games this season. We go through it game week by game week. And I said 2-0 to Manchester United on that prediction. And I've not really seen anything that's going to change my mind. You know, he's not told me that everybody's fit and suddenly we're all going to be able to play. And so, yeah, I think I see the danger coming. I think we'll be punished. I think Rashford will score. I think that's a fairly decent bet because I think he's really going to have the run of the wing down that sort of left-hand side if that's where he's playing. And I do think that you've probably just got too much for us. And the way that we have been playing before the international break, I just don't see us creating, even if Onana sort of spills one, we'll not have a striker within 5 miles of him, never mind 5 yards to try and pick up the rebound anyway.
I'm gonna go with. I see you getting a goal. I'm gonna go 2-1 because United, we just leak goals this season. We just leak goals, and as you mentioned, it's not even like the most attacking sides that are getting them as well.
No.
You know, Brentford, Palace, they still got goals. You know, from set pieces, from mistakes, and my hope is just if that happens and you go 1-0 up and you've got something to hang on to. I know we came back in the last game, but away from home, different kettle of fish. But I still do think that I would just have enough quality. Players are going to be back. They'll be in their right positions. Bruno Fernandes won't be playing wide right, which he's just not suited to that. He's so much better as a 10. He'll be involved in the game. Hopefully, we've seen thus far this season, if you give Højlund service, he will cause problems. He will get goals. So I'm going to go 2-1. But I don't think it's going to be relatively straightforward or anything like that. I just don't see it.
I have to say, the one thing that worries me, and obviously I've talked about the wingers, but the other thing that we've struggled at, and it was similar the last time we were in the Premier League actually, is individual quality. So a good dribbler, somebody who's fast. And so I do think that, you know, if we go 1-up, if your prediction's right and United score, say we score early and we can frustrate you to 60 to 70, I do think a player like Mainu would make a difference as well. You know, I know we've not seen loads of him in the Premier League, but obviously he had a fantastic pre-season. We've seen the clips of him sort of doing skills and tricks in training. And I do think it's the individual quality. A player with the confidence, with sort of trickery on the ball to just run at a defence. Our defence doesn't handle that particularly well. And so I think if you're right, if we can score early, that individual quality off the bench will probably be the difference maker.
So there you go. Predictions are in from both of us. Let us know your thoughts, your predictions, your predicted starting 11s in the comment section below. Have I been too generous? Has Ollie been too defeatist? You can let us know in the comment section. You can let us know in the comment section below. Be sure to check them out as well. Sheffield United, where they'll be in the title, they'll be in the video description as well. And you can see the reaction maybe after when they cry on Saturday after hopefully we get a result. Took a very sour turn towards the end there. Anyway, guys. I know, right in the heart, wasn't it? Anyway, guys, we're out of here. Have a good one. We'll speak to you again very soon. Peace.